One of the themes of the service, as we reflect on different experiences of exile, is to breathe deeply and freely. In the service, we're going to think about what it means to breathe deeply and freely as we listen to some of the initiatives of our Creation Care Group for September. We're going to breathe deeply and freely as we listen to Ecclesia's journey of being exiled and to discover the gift of being exiled. What I noticed over the last few weeks is that the theme of exile keeps surfacing everywhere. It really started with the xenophobic attacks and the fear of those who looked for refuge in this country, feeling they have to leave again. Once again, exiled. We had this wonderful concert that Liesel organized for Mahmoud Abu Warda, a Palestinian composer and musician who finds himself in exile in Istanbul. And the fundraising that was done in this church with an event that so many Muslim brothers and sisters here supporting this Palestinian cause, enabling him to start his own new studio again in Istanbul. And we're going to reflect on his thank you letter later in the service. There is this exhibition that I still want to see in the Mokka Museum called The Protea is Not a Flower. Thinking about the incredible roots that proteas can develop. Very much also on the theme of exile. So the gift of being exiled. The experience of feeling alienated from this creation. The concert on the notes from exile. All those different aspects of exile will come together in the service, and I hope that you yourself will also hear the invitation to work with that theme and what it means for you. So yes, we want to breathe freely and deeply. And who would be the better person to invite us to do so than our wonderful Erika, yoga teacher and coach, and she will lead us in a breathing prayer.
The title of the prayer is Come Home to Yourself. So before we begin, I would like to share and show you how to do one particular technique which we're going to do today. So it's called Ujjayi breath, and it's the ocean breath. It's a warming up breath which we all need this morning. So you're going to close your eyes, but please don't do it right now. And I'm going to guide you through. It's going to be very easy. But the Ujjayi, when I introduce it, it's a breath you need to use your imagination. You imagine that there is a hole in your throat and you're going to breathe through right in between the collarbone. And then you imagine there is a hole and you are drawing the air in through this hole right here where the collarbone meets basically the bottom of your throat. And when you do that, you slightly contract your glottis. I'm going to show you what the kind of sound you're going to hear and how to do it. So it's something like this. That's it. It's very easy to follow. So now I would like you to close your eyes. Sit with your spine straight as much as you can. And relax your body. You don't have to do anything. Just follow my voice. Bring your awareness to your nostrils. Just focus on your nostrils and notice the air coming in and out of your nostrils. Breathing in through the nostrils and breathing out. The breath and the spirit are deeply connected. God breathes life into us. Breathing in, life. Exhaling, letting go. And Jesus reminds us that the Spirit is like the breath of God, unseen yet present, moving within us. There is nothing you need to change. Just notice the air, life and spirit coming in through your nostrils. And when you exhale, letting go. And as you breathe, allow yourself to hear these words. It is time to come home to yourself. Breathing in and out to become quiet, to listen beneath the noise, to reconnect with the knowing already within you. Sometimes you simply need to become still enough to remember who you are. Just keep your attention on your nostrils, breathing in and out. The breath is the gift of life. So as you breathe, remember the breath is life, the breath is spirit, and with every breath, God is with you. Just breathe in and out through the nostrils. Stay with the breath, quietly, gently, present. And keeping the eyes closed, I will guide you into gentle Ujjayi breath, the ocean breath. A soft, audible breath that will help us remain present and connected to this moment. So as I just showed you, just imagine there is a hole at the bottom of your throat, just a small hole, and you start to draw in the air through that small hole. Contacting the glottis and breathing out through that small hole. Hear the sound, the ocean waves. Focus on that small hole and the air coming in and out of your throat only. Experience the air coming through that small hole at the bottom of your throat. Contracting the glottis will help. Slow breath in, deepening the breath, and slowly breathing out. Just follow the breath. Drawing in the air through the throat, that small hole. Listen to the sound of your own breath, like the ocean wave. Then slowly drop it, keeping the eyes closed, bringing up the awareness to the nostrils again. And just notice the difference when you're breathing in and out through the nostrils now. Breathing in, I receive. Breathing out, I let go. Breathing in, I am here. Breathing out, I am still. May each breath draw us closer to your heart, O God. Fully alive, renewed, and ready to love and shine. Amen. Open your eyes.
As we breathe deeply and freely, we will also discover a deeper thirst for life within us. And so with the words from St. John of the Cross, we sing, by night we hasten, in darkness and we remain seated.
In September and spilling over into October as we expand our activities. Now, most of you probably grew up with the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle, and that has to do with the way that we deal with our waste. But the thinking has expanded towards conscientious consumption, and so we can add 3 more R's to that, and that is to repurpose, to reap, and to ride. And so we're going to be introducing an exciting new initiative around repurposing. And so Hannah and Amy are going to talk to us about clothing.
Morning, everybody. Thank you for the intro to conscientious consumption, which is some very big words, but we wanted to share about the initiative that we'll be running, inspired by some facts that we've come across recently that are quite disturbing. For example, one of the biggest polluters of our time is the fashion industry. The equivalent of 1 garbage truck full of clothes is burned or dumped in landfill every second. Each year, the textile value chain uses 215 trillion litres of water. So much of our clothing that we buy is made from polyester and other synthetic materials, which wears down in every wash and puts microplastics in our water sources. And less than 1% of that material that's used to make clothing is recycled. These factors are all worsened by how easy it is these days to buy much more than we need for much cheaper, thanks to big companies like Shein and Temu. That's the bad news.
The good news is that there are ways we can resist these trends in our daily choices. The first is simply to reduce how much we buy. Repairing rather than replacing clothes is a way to reduce. A second way is through thrifting or buying second-hand clothes instead of new. There are several things that I really like about thrifting. The first is that I am able to buy items of quality often for cheaper. This means I'm not buying new items made of plastic fibers that don't last well and are bad for me and the environment. The second is that there are a lot of second-hand stores in Cape Town. Amy and I are both wearing entirely thrifted outfits today. Second-hand stores such as U-Turn and Help the Rural Child are in aid of a good cause also, so your money is uplifting other people.
So all of this is to say, please get excited for the RUC Creation Thrift Store happening on Sunday the 11th of October after church. You may have seen our call for donations in the newsletter already, but if you haven't, here it is. Then thank you to those who have donated already. We really appreciate it. On the day, you'll be able to pay with cash, card, or SnapScan, and the proceeds will go to a cause yet to be determined by the Creation Care team. If you have any questions, please feel free to find me after church, and emphasis on the word find, because I'll be teaching Holy Circus today, so good luck finding me, but I'm happy to chat anytime.
Thanks so much. James is going to tell those of you who are not familiar with the Sustainable Lunch a bit more about that and to remind us about what our role is in it.
Good morning, everyone. So the Sustainable Lunch is the annual event where we remember how through our food choices we are connected to the planet, and it's an opportunity for us to bring and share recipes of ours that as far as possible have been sourced locally, prepared sustainably, so energy efficiency, think hot boxes, and use products that really are sustainably sourced. It's an opportunity after church on the 20th of September to come and share your recipes. We have a recipe book that Sandra and others put together from last year. So those will be available online again. I think we'll make those available. And just come and share in what has become a wonderful tradition in this church of thinking sustainably about food choices. If you want to know more, I'll be at tea afterwards. Thank you.
Thanks, James. There's a notice, I think, on the plant bring and shade. So another part of REAP is our own gardens and pot plants. The reason I just wanted to bring it to your attention is it's only 3 weeks away. So please start potting your extra plants to share with others and to take something home that you are particularly like. Just a challenge is that we've always thought of plants and our gardens as something we own, we nourish. It's a little bit paternalistic. Maybe we need to think of plants now. We think of creation as our partners as part of creation. Maybe we need to think of our plants as our companions. And so please bring your companions and please take a companion home. Thanks. The last one, which is Ride, we will be talking about the Car-Free Sunday later in October. And then finally, also on repurpose, Claudine has been running a bookshop several years running, but isn't able to do it. But we do have a new volunteer for that. But if anybody would like to assist her, please let me know. That'll probably also again be either in October or November. Another example of repurpose. sing. Thank you.
Yonder dressed in white,
God's gonna trouble the water.
Must be the children that Moses led.
God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
Ecclesia, we had you here, not sure exactly what year, but I remember you came when you were on your way to the Constitutional Court, hoping that you would be heard and reinstated as a minister in the Methodist Church. And I remember we were all deeply moved about your journey. And so it's very special to have you back here after many, many years of exile, of being exiled, but also, and this is the great provocation and surprise to me, about the gift of being exiled. And you've just published a book that tries to capture some of the journey. And I had the great pleasure of being at the launch of the book last week. And thank you for being so spontaneous and being happy to come to share a little bit about the book, to also launch it in our church, and to share something of the journey. And obviously there's so many amazing quotes that it was hard to just stick to a few, but I thought this one kind of as a way into our conversation really struck me when you said, I did not leave the church because I stopped loving God. I left because I loved God too much to keep lying. What was that lying about? And what was it that you needed to be honest about? Maybe for those who don't know you, you could give a little bit of context.
Okay. Thank you, Robert, for the invitation. And thank you for having me here this morning. I always see Rondebosch United as a home. My home church, the Methodist Church, of which I was pushed out. I want to put it very gently. But what I see as being exiled. And for those who don't know, let me just briefly tell you, it was in 2009, the 6th of December, the first Advent, when I made an announcement that I was going to marry my same-sex partner. And that resolved into quite a bit of tribulation in my life, which led to suspension, arbitration, and then a whole litigation, years of litigation, which ended in 2018. And let me be very clear, the cause, the main issue that I actually took to the courts was discrimination based on sexual orientation. That matter, the merits of that case was never heard within the legal process. I didn't win the case in the litigation. However, I didn't continue on the litigation course that was set out. I could have gone to the Equality Court and the Labour Court, but consequently decided against that and turned back to the church in having conversations. And in that process, this gift of being exiled emerged, which led me to writing the book at the end of the day. The quote, it's because of the love of God that I left. and not being able to lie to myself anymore. You know, lying, not being able to speak the truth, is something that will kill you. To speak the truth takes courage, and not everyone can do that. Somehow, some fear, if you speak the truth, you will no longer be, you will be pushed aside. And choosing myself, and choosing who God created. I couldn't lie to myself anymore. I needed to be truthful, authentic. I was lying, or not lying, I was not being fully me. I was in pieces all everywhere. A little bit of love here, a little bit of faith here, a little bit of my calling here. I had to translate who I was into pieces and could not be whole. I hope that makes sense in some way.
Absolutely. And I shared with Ecclesia a lovely poem. I was looking David White, Theme of Exile, and this is the poem I found, Sweet Darkness. And you said it would resonate with you, and maybe once I've read it, Ecclesia, you can briefly make a few connections. When your eyes are tired, the world is tired also. When your vision has gone, no part of the world can find you. Time to go into the dark where the night has eyes to recognize its own. There you can be sure you're not beyond love. The dark will be your home tonight. The night will give you a horizon further than you can see. You must learn one thing: the world was made to be free in. Give up all the other worlds, except the one to which you belong. Sometimes it takes darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness to learn. Anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you.
It's a very, very profound poem. I think just the first stanza, when your eyes are tired, being exiled is exhaustion. Exhaustions on all fronts, spiritually, emotionally, physically, financially. You are exhausted. The darkness is just doesn't become beautiful all of a sudden. The darkness is dark. You cannot see. You don't know what comes next. I think what the darkness brings as a gift is to be present constantly, because you don't know what the next step is. In the darkness, I discovered a new vision. I, first of all, didn't have any vision. I couldn't see. But staying there and being present and trusting the process, even though there's questions with regards to the process, gave me new vision. I could start to see in the dark, and found that there was life beyond the darkness. I had to ask myself this question about what gives me life and what doesn't give me life. And in that distinction, I realized that what doesn't give me life is just too small for me. And I had to move on.
I asked Ecclesia to choose two passages from our scriptures that speak to exile. And these are the two examples she sent to me. We don't have time to read the whole passage and story, and I invite you to read it at home after our reflection. But you beautifully summed those two stories up for me, exile that Hagar experienced, and the exile to the people in exile to which Jeremiah ministered. There were different aspects of exile, but each had a beautiful and important message to those who suddenly find themselves in exile.
I think the story of Hagar, she exiled basically herself just because she was treated very, very badly. And in the desert where she fled to, this woman that was not a matriarch, she was part of, let's say, the enemies of Israel. And here, God revealed God's self to her. And I think for me, that is the moving part for me, is that God saw her when nobody else could see her. And where others don't recognize your calling or your worth, God will see you. And God has always seen you. And that is what I took.
And it's so beautiful how in the story Hagar then says, "This is your name. You are the God who sees." And what a beautiful revelation.
Yeah. God is the God who sees. Jeremiah, of course, is very different. The people did not choose exile. And here God is saying, plant plants, build homes, live your life. It's a powerful agency that they've got to take control of their lives, and not just to wait for deliverance. And I think in my journey, Robert, there was most probably a point, where I waited for the church to come to their senses. I waited for vindication. I waited for the litigation process to, be successful. But in that process of waiting, I realized I needed to live. And there I found new friends. I found I Am, Inclusive and Affirming Ministries. I found Melanie. I found friends. I found Roundabout United. A new calling emerged. My calling found a new address, and more powerful.
Tell us more about I Am, and
Yes.
your position there. And
Inclusive and Affirming Ministries, also called I Am, is a faith-based organisation. We're in Durbanville, and we work towards eradicating religious, instigated homo, bi and transphobia. And so we work on the intersection of gender-based violence, economic injustice, health, equality, gender equality, and we bring an alternative faith or theological interpretation where text or the Bible is used as a weapon to harm people and to exclude people. And we work within the whole region of Africa.
that's right. And what Ecclesia obviously doesn't say is that she is now the director of the organization after many years of having joined and worked with them. I think it's so significant. It's faith-based. Focus is theological reflection. Is to affirm people's dignity and conversation. Now, I see, Ecclesia, you brought your book, marked many different passages, and you might want to share something yourself. I obviously also discovered some lovely quotes, and I thought, let's sit in silence for a moment with the quotes that I have chosen. Looking specifically, well, what's the gift in exile? And then I leave that to you, Ecclesia, if you want to pick up any of those quotes or something that you would like to speak about. But I want to give us a minute just to reflect on some of the passages in the book.
that second quote. Exile does not give us answers. It gives you silence long enough to hear the questions you have been avoiding. I also want to say exile is not the gift. It is what emerges when you deal with being exiled. So I don't want to romanticize suffering or discrimination or anything like that. That's the one thing that I didn't wish it on myself, and I don't want to wish it on anyone else. And it comes at a high cost. So it doesn't give answers. I think exile has given me the sense of to be comfortable with uncertainty. You don't always have to have the answer, to stay curious with who God is, curious about people and curious about myself. I've learned that in exile I've discovered so much about myself, but the journey continues in discovering who I am as a human being. Often we don't pay attention to the questions that are looming within our being because we are so concerned for this thing called belonging that we diminish ourselves or we silence our own voice just so that we can fit in. And I think that is one of the greatest gifts for me being exiled, is to say I'm never going to silence my voice again. I'll find ways in expressing it. And one needs to have tact in that, but I will never make myself small to fit in any place or any circle of friendship or being in an institution. But all those quotes, I can speak a long time.
I'm sure. We will need to have you back. Now, what I found also so fascinating in the book, Ecclesia, is that at some stage in the book you also then kind of pull us, the reader, in, who might have a very different journey, a very different challenge, but also feel exiled. And you make that term even wider. And I want to show one of the central quotes that does so. You address us as readers and say, you may not have been exiled in the ways I was, but if you are honest, you may recognize subtler forms of exile at work or in your own life. The parts of yourself you keep quiet to remain acceptable. The truths you postpone until circumstances feel safer. The questions you silence because they might cost you belonging.
Yes, there are different ways of being exiled. Rowan mentioned it earlier in the service, the refugees, Palestinian, physical, being removed from your own land. Then there's institutional exile, something similar to myself, where you are put outside an institution, you don't belong anymore, or community. And then the third one, I think, is internalized exile, where that's a place where I referred to just now. We don't want to go there. We keep silence during family meetings, or even silence in a relationship with your partner, where you silence your own voice, where you cannot speak. And so you start living fragmentally. You fragment yourself in small pieces to make yourself belong. And that is what I mean by, in some way, many of us, if we're honest with ourselves, and we can sit in silence and just think about it, where do we shut ourselves down? Whether it's in family, work, community, church, friendship circles, where we don't show the authentic self, or where we can't speak the truth. And I think that's one of the gifts that I want people to wrestle with when they read this book. It's not just for people that are queer, or that struggles, or not struggle. We don't struggle with our sexuality. People struggle with sexuality. It's not just about LGBTIQ people. This is universal, big themes within our lives.
I want to bring our conversation to a close with some art. Cheryl kindly gave me this wonderful book by André Kertész, an Hungarian-based Jew, photographer and artist, who exiled himself in some ways to Paris and then had to flee Paris to New York, 1936, to escape the Nazis. Some say that a lot of his work is around the theme of exile, and there are different aspects of his visual language that speak to exile. And I picked up one, which is the geometry of shadows, and I found it fascinating. Those photos are taken from a high vantage point. He works with elongated shadows, separated from their physical bodies. Trying to encircle and reflect on the experiences of absence, a split identity and detachment of the self from its origins. And I wanted to close with this picture, Ecclesia, because I think that's you. Courageous. Reconnecting with those parts that have been silenced. Bringing everything together, being honest, and throwing yourself into what brings you alive. So thank you for the gift of your book, for making yourself so vulnerable. And I wonder, one of my questions was, if the church ever, and this is not just the Methodist church, Presbyterians, Congregationals, Anglicans, I think to take the step that you've taken would, as the institution says, discontinue one's ministry immediately. I wonder if there will ever be a major paradigm shift. Would you be coming back to the church as an ordained minister? Maybe you don't need to answer the question. I'm curious. But maybe it's not going to happen in our lifetime if we are realistic. That's something that I was thinking. Because I remember when you open the book, you speak with such passion about your ministry and work and how you love the people and love doing what you were doing. And then all of that was taken away from you, and how hard it was. You say one of the hard things of exile is to learn that we are replaceable. Well, I'm not so sure if you are replaceable, Ecclesia.
Well, you know, the word discontinuation means like a product that has been discontinued. They always discontinue the good products. Do you find that in the shops? Melanie and I, we just discover an excellent product and then 2 months later it's discontinued. So maybe I'm in that category. Robert, it's an interesting question. As I stand here before you, truthfully now, I would not want to go back to an institutional church. There's too much dogma. I would want to revise every doctrine that there is. So, no. I at this moment, I might change my mind. I'm always open to change. I stay open.
Can I just fill in? And this is somebody saying whose name is Ecclesia in Greek, the church.
I speak about the institutional church because what I did discover in exile is that there's an enormous church outside of the institutional church.
Yes. And Ecclesia actually means being called out.
Yes.
I never thought of being called out of the church to be the church.
So I have found, and that is where my ministry has gotten life. Because I'm doing now more. I it's very difficult to explain in words what we do when we encounter people in dialogue sessions, transformation in reading the Bible anew, contextually. It brings me life, far more than what it would have been an institutional church to be confined. I think the institutional church has just become too small for me. And we cannot think that God can be put in a church and this is God. God is far wider than any church. And God is to be discovered. And in the same way, we are to be discovered. So, no, not at this moment. I will not go back to church. Institutional church.
As I said initially in the service, so many themes of exile emerging around us at the moment. We received a thank you letter from Mahmoud Abu Wada, which is also printed in the newsletter, in which Liesel kindly sent to me. Just another experience of exile. To my dear friends, supporters, and my beautiful Cape Town family. When I first envisioned the Notes from Exile concert, it was born out of a deep sense of displacement and a desperate hope to rebuild what was lost. I did not know what to expect, but what I found in Cape Town was a community that embraced me with open arms and open hearts. I'm writing this to you today with a heart full of immense gratitude. Because of you, every single person who bought a ticket, stood in the crowd, shared the campaign, and generously donated. The Note of Exile has transformed into a symphony of hope and belonging. I'm thrilled and deeply moved to share with you that the proceeds and donations have safely reached me. More importantly, the rebuilding of my studio has officially begun. The walls are going up, the dream is breathing again. And none of this would have been possible without your unwavering support. You didn't just help me replace equipment or bricks, you restored my voice, my safe haven, and my faith in the power of human connection through music. You proved that even when an artist feels like they are in exile, art can build a bridge right back home. Special thanks to the musicians, artists, poets, and directors who performed Notes from Exile. Every new chord I strike and every new melody I record in this new space will carry a piece of Cape Town's soul in it. Thank you for believing in me, for standing by me, and for giving me the greatest gift an artist can ask for, the chance to keep creating. I cannot wait to share the music that comes out of this new studio with all of you. With all my love and deepest appreciation, Mahmoud Abu Wada.
We are borrowing that phrase that Martin Luther King made so famous, that the arc of history is long, but it tends towards justice in our responses. As indicated there, you will respond with the yellow part. Loving God, you have created us all in your image, yet each of us unique. How is it that so often it is exactly our diversity that gets used to separate us? That skin tone, gender, religion, nationality becomes a criteria to decide who belongs and who not. We have heard from Ecclesia how she had to choose between living her truth and acceptance in her faith community. God, we lament that for so many their sexual orientation forces them to hide or risk the loss of belonging, livelihood, even the risk of being imprisoned. In silence, we may mention names to God. In the hope that the arc of history bends towards justice. We lift up our hands to you. This is Women's Month, and we lament the reality that for many women, access to education and finance is still limited. Fear of violence is a daily reality. Barriers limit their freedom of choice and advancement. In silence, let us raise women who are struggling against these barriers to God. In the hope that the arc of history bends towards justice, lift up our prayers, saying, bind us together, O God. For millions who needed to leave their countries of birth for this country, this has meant living in hiding, keeping moving, never fully belonging, being separated again and again from each other, from work opportunities, from a temporary home. We lament their exploitation by employers, their fear of being attacked, barred from schools or clinics. In silence, let us mention the names of those we know. In the hope that the arc of history bends toward justice, there are also many who work in support of these and other groups who live in exile. And God, we give thanks for all women and men who give their time, their skills and love to improve the lives of those with disabilities, of refugees, of those who are excluded because of how they speak, how they look, how they believe. We give thanks for all who work towards greater justice, and we hold them up to your protection and your blessing. In the hope that the arc of history bends toward justice, we lift up our prayers, saying, bind us together, O God of love. Father, Mother God, Creator of us all in your image, go with us so that we are able to embrace the unique gifts in all persons and groups. Jesus, you who cared for strangers and outcasts, go with us so we can be true neighbours. Holy Spirit, who breaks down barriers, go with us so we find the means to create a welcoming space for all, with open arms and open hearts. Amen.
always lead you home. Go in peace. Amen.
Amen.